The Tudor period, spanning from 1485 to 1603, was a time of profound cultural, religious and social change in England. Alongside political upheavals, the people of Tudor England observed numerous festivals that marked the agricultural calendar, religious events, and community life. Fall festivals, in particular, reflected both the harvest cycle and the Christian liturgical calendar. These celebrations, imbued with religious devotion, superstition, and local traditions, were essential to the social fabric of Tudor life. Harvest festivals were significant during the Tudor fall season, rooted in the agrarian society that depended on a successful yield. Known as Harvest Home or Ingathering, these celebrations took place in late September after the harvest was collected. Historians like Ronald Hutton suggest that these festivals were characterised by feasting, games and communal merrymaking. The labourers and tenants who worked the fields would be honoured with a banquet, often hosted by the landowner, as a gesture of gratitude for their work. Harvest festivals were seen as a time to give thanks to God for a bountiful crop and to ask for continued blessings for the next season. According to writer Calin Osborne, for much of English history, Catholic feast days dominated the celebratory life of its people. During the Elizabethan era, the Protestant religion had taken hold, and while Catholics were tolerated under Elizabeth I's rule, they were not exactly loud about their beliefs. The holidays celebrating the saints fell out of popularity to some degree. However, the church was still a large part of communal life, and many celebrations still centred around the church in some manner. In the Tudor court, harvest season was celebrated with a mix of religious observance, feasting, and traditional festivities, reflecting both the agricultural roots of the season and the luxurious lifestyle of the monarchy. These celebrations were more elaborate than those in rural areas and incorporated both symbolic gestures of thanksgiving for the harvest and grand courtly entertainment. Feasts during the harvest season were accompanied by pageantry and entertainment, which were a hallmark of the Tudor court. Musicians, dancers and actors performed for the royal family and courtiers, often staging masks that featured allegorical characters representing harvest, abundance and fertility. These performances were sometimes accompanied by fireworks, jousts or hunting expeditions, all symbolising the power and prosperity of the monarch. The entertainment reinforced the idea of the monarch as the protector and provider of the realm, mirroring the agricultural cycle and the country's reliance on a successful harvest. The Feast of St. Michael and All Angels, celebrated on September 29th, marked an important date in the Tudor calendar. Michaelmas had both religious and agricultural significance, marking the end of the harvest and the start of autumn. Biographer Eamon Duffy explains that it was a time when rents were traditionally due and new servants were hired for the upcoming year, making it a critical day for both landowners and tenants. St. Michael was believed to have power over the forces of darkness, and his feast was a reminder of the spiritual battle between good and evil, as well as a time to celebrate the fruits of the earth. The period following Michaelmas led into the celebrations of All Saints' Day, November 1st, and All Souls' Day, November 2nd. These festivals, integral to the Catholic Church's calendar, commemorated the dead. According to historian Peter Marshall, these days were marked by prayers, church services, and offerings made on behalf of the souls in purgatory. The importance of these feasts in Tudor society is evident from the numerous wills that included provisions for masses and prayers to be said for the deceased. The shift to Protestantism during the reign of Henry VIII and Edward VI saw attempts to suppress these observances, but in many areas traditional practices persisted. Though not strictly a fall festival, Lammas Day on August 1st was still connected to the harvest cycle, particularly the grain harvest, and its effects were felt into the fall. Lammas, derived from loaf mass, was when the first fruits of the wheat harvest were offered in church as a thanksgiving. This festival was particularly important for the bread economy, a staple of the Tudor diet. Archaeologist Carenza has noted that the records of medieval manorial courts often reference the Lammas period as the time when disputes over common land and pastures were settled, indicating its continued importance in rural life into the Tudor era. St. Martin's Day, or Martinmas, celebrated on November 11th, was another major festival in the Tudor fall. It signalled the end of the agricultural year, when the last of the autumn produce was gathered and livestock were slaughtered to preserve meat for the winter. Historian A.H.R. Ball suggests that Martinmas was a significant time for feasting, particularly because the slaughter of animals, such as pigs, would result in an abundance of fresh meat, especially pork. This festival marked a transition into the colder months and was often associated with legal affairs such as lease renewals and hiring fares for labourers. Hallowtide, which encompassed All Hallows' Eve, October 31st, was a time associated with superstition and the supernatural. The belief in the thin veil between the living and the dead was pervasive during the Tudor era. Anthropologist Margaret Murray notes that many of the customs during this time were tied to pagan traditions, such as lighting bonfires to ward off evil spirits, or the practice of souling, where people would go door to door offering prayers for the dead in exchange for food. These practices, which predated the Reformation, were gradually suppressed, but survived in some rural areas. Though modern bonfire night is associated with the gunpowder plot of 1605, bonfires were a common feature of Tudor fall festivals long before this event. Historian David Cressy notes that bonfires were often lit on important religious or royal occasions, such as the accession of monarchs or victories in battle. In rural areas, bonfires were lit at key agricultural moments, such as after the harvest or to mark the beginning of winter. These bonfires had both a communal and a symbolic purpose, often associated with the idea of purifying the land or warding off evil forces. Autumn fairs and markets were common during the Tudor period, particularly around Michaelmas and Martinmas. These fairs were an opportunity for rural communities to trade goods, livestock and produce, as well as to enjoy entertainments such as bear baiting, performances and games. Historian Ian Archer emphasises that these fairs were crucial to the economic life of Tudor England, as they allowed for the exchange of surplus harvests and facilitated the hiring of labourers for the coming year. The fairs were also places where itinerant merchants and entertainers could earn their living, making them lively and vital events in Tudor society. The changing seasons were marked by religious processions and feasts that blended Christian and pagan traditions. During autumn, the Tudors held processions to give thanks for the harvest or to pray for protection from the coming winter. Archaeological studies of church records from the period revealed that these processions often included the blessing of fields, crops, and even livestock. Religious historian Judith Maltby points out that such rituals, though officially discouraged by Protestant reformers, persisted in many regions. These processions and the accompanying feasts strengthened community bonds and reflected the deep intertwining of religion and agriculture in Tudor life. The fall festivals of Tudor England were rich with meaning, blending the agricultural calendar with religious and cultural traditions. From Harvest Home to Martinmas, these celebrations reflected the rhythms of Tudor life, while also serving as important moments of communal gathering, thanksgiving, and spiritual reflection. Despite the Reformation's attempts to reshape religious observances, many of these fall traditions persisted, evolving over time but remaining central to the lives of the people who celebrated them. I hope that you enjoyed this short documentary. If you like this video, please like it and share it with other Tudor enthusiasts. And if you haven't joined our royal family yet, please subscribe. We would love to have you. Until next time, keep loving history and stay curious.